Alrighty, friends, we're back. It's your favorite podcast of the week. It's Location Weekly, and this is episode number 650. We're recording on December the 19th. Yeah, it's we're like less than a week from Christmas now, people. So things are busy, things are winding down all at once. It's kind of like everything, the rush to the end of the year. How are you doing, Aubriana?
I'm good. Feeling the rush to the end of the year, but I'm good. Looking forward to downtime with family and not having to like get up and just like do all the things for a few days and stay in pajamas and sit by the fire, and that's what I'm looking forward to the most. But I'm good.
Sounds good. Yeah, cool. Well, it's and before we jump into the stories for the day, I just wanted to remind people that you know, as soon as the year turns over, it gets fully into conference season. So the year kicks off with CES in Las Vegas. So I'll be there along with our partners. And we have a little booth and everything. So if you're going to be there, please reach out and we'd love to meet with you or see you or catch up in some way. And then right after that, the following week, we'll be in New York for the NRF, the National Retail Federation's big show. And same kind of thing. We'd love to see you there. So please reach out if you're going to be at either of those events. That would be awesome. So yeah, we have four stories for you this week that we wanted to walk through, kind of a range of interesting, I'm going to say like some newish platforms that I certainly wasn't familiar with, but I'll let Brianna kick us off.
Yeah, so we'll start with the small business startups. And this one is called TextOMap. And what they focus on are building interactive maps from location-based texts. So some of the things that they are doing is enabling users to create maps from original content. And they're utilizing AI, but they're not using an AI database because that would limit, I guess, the kind of maps they would be able to build. So they're really trying to solve some challenges like creating interactive maps for every piece of content, which would be really manual and difficult in other ways, I guess. And they're also noting that maps are typically standalone. They don't interact. The audience is limited in how they can interact with maps. And so for a creator and their content, they have to constantly switch from the map to the content side. And in essence, this is allowing them to kind of map their content wherever it goes. And then, maps on mobile can be very challenging, clumsy, not a great user experience, and limited tools, right? So they're trying to say, here's all the problems that exist in the marketplace. And so we have created, and we have these unique abilities to really create maps from original content. So they are touting that they can generate maps within seconds with 100+ locations, which is pretty cool. They have an intuitive user experience, no onboarding, takes just a couple of clicks to create this map. And then you can obviously generate maps in the same tab as the content that you're viewing. So not having to like switch between a bunch of applications and tabs is probably another really cool benefit. So right now they're supporting 11 languages. And they are available to 3 billion users. They can also integrate with third-party databases to generate content. So this is a German-based company. How big are they? Not very, but they've signed up 3,000 users. They're generating 2,000 euros annually in revenue for their subscriptions. And they've got more than 30,000 maps that have been created using TextOMap. They're also monetizing their free version using advertising. So very early days, but I think that this is like helping with that learning curve for high traffic websites. You think, okay, I'm a content creator, I've got travel blogs, are some examples that they gave. And I think there's like some really interesting opportunities for them to expand. They're saying travel, for example, is going to continue to grow this year and through 2028 at roughly 3%. So they've got some opportunities to expand there. And right now they don't really have any competition, right? Like their competitors, Google apparently sunsetted and stopped supporting the My Maps app. And so that's kind of an entry point for them in the market. And I think this is really unique, right? Like if you do have a blog or you do have something that is specific to a specific, a general area, and you want to guide users through things, location-based text mapping is pretty cool. I could see using this if I was in a new place or just wanted to see like what's around me in a general neighborhood, perhaps. You think of like New York City is huge. What's around me that's cool to do in this specific area? And maybe there's content that can engage with that. That's like, hey, this is, I don't know, the Chelsea blog. So something like that could be really cool. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really early days. It's an interesting new application for location-based text messaging. That's a little twist. I like how they're integrating AI to make this really functional and fast. And it seems like there just needs to be more scale and a broader application for this to really take off.
Yeah, I mean, I like this. It's not often we cover, sort of super early startups on the podcast. So I always find, when something like this, comes across the desk, and you see sort of, some real innovation or, somebody taking a completely different approach to a market, I get really interested. And so, yeah, I think generating maps, quick and easy, no code, based on kind of this real time or close to real time location based, text content. I think it's an interesting concept, right? And I think going after that travel sector, makes a lot of sense for them. I think it reminded me as I was listening to you tell the story, years and years ago, we covered a story on the show of a campaign or a program that was being run by KLM Airlines, and I just looked it up while you were talking, called Must See Map. And essentially, what they had done is that you know if you had sort of a KLM account and you had a Facebook account, they kind of linked those things together. And then basically, what it would do is it would crawl through your Facebook friends and connections and posts, and then generate a map of recommended destinations that KLM flies to, with places, are already building sort of the sightseeing map for you based on, the tourist spots and places that your friends who'd been to those countries had visited. And the kind of thinking of this is that it's one thing to go read a travel blog or, jump on, one of the big, sites, where you can read about, what to see in Toronto or New York or, wherever. But it's another thing to kind of get recommendations from people, like your friends and family and others, that you kind of put a little higher credibility in that. And so I think if you can kind of generate, interesting content that is social based or text based or within a closed network, I think that's really interesting. So I like kind of what they're doing here. I'm kind of intrigued to follow along and see where this might end up. I'm going to have Karsten reach out to these guys from our German team, and maybe we can get them involved in our retail loco in Munich coming up in the new year or something like that. So yeah, really interesting. Okay, on to our second story. So we're going to jump over to Asia now, where there's a social network platform called Jagat. That's spelled Jagat. This is both an iOS and Android platform, and they have just passed 10 million users. So a significant milestone there. They're calling it a location-based social network. It only launched back in March, so 10 million users, in a pretty short time. And it's all based on a interactive map interface. So the idea is that you're able to kind of monitor on a map, where your friends are in real time, discover new people around you, just discover activities around you. The company's based in Singapore and Indonesia. And yeah, I think it's it's somewhat interesting in that it's got elements of platforms like Glimpse, where you could track, where your friends and loved ones are, but with a very social map-based kind of interface to it. And they're really focusing on helping you explore and find new things to do or new people to meet around you. Whether it's to go take a painting class together or attend a local concert or go to a local basketball game or what have you. They're trying to kind of facilitate that through this location-based content on an interactive map. Yeah, and you can also explore other communities. So let's say you're somebody like you or me who travels a lot. Maybe you have some free time while you're there. You can explore kind of what's going on and who's doing things in other communities around the world as well. So I think that's a nice feature to what they're doing here. So they say the average user checks in and uses the app 3 to 4 times a day. So that's pretty significant. I
Yeah.
would say similar to Facebook or Snap or something like that. Yeah, so I don't have a lot more to say about it, but I think it's interesting to see that sort of very, very fast growth to 10 million users in a short time, and using a map as sort of the front focus and sort of layout of how you navigate what you want to do. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like this is a lot very similar to the direction that Snap is trying to go with some of their new features with like that interactive map
Yeah.
features and kind of trying to see what's happening around you, how busy places are, sort of that Google Map feature. But I really like they're focusing on the real life connections, and I think that those numbers are really sticky. So checking in 3 to 4 times a day, I think is really impressive. And so I think that that's like a good stat to understand and gauge, like how are they going to grow and what's the trajectory going to be. So I don't know. I think this one's like one that we should definitely keep in mind. Maybe for the prediction show, but one to watch for sure.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing up the Snap piece. So Snap has a product called Zenly that is kind of has a similar type of interface. So if
Yeah.
you look that one up.
All right, so on to our third story, a company you have definitely heard of, Sony. But this is their Sony semiconductor solutions, and they have continued momentum for its edge AI sensing platform, which is called Atrios. So they're doing this in partnership with retail and logistics players. So they're including verticals like convenience, pharmacy, and logistics solution providers. And speaking of NRF, this debuted this year at 2023 at the NRF Big Show. And really, it was like to help retailers visualize the physical world of their brick and mortar locations digitally. So they could have AI insights to solve for, like, is there availability of my products on the shelf, right? Also something called planogram compliance, which refers to, I had to look this up. I'm like, what is planogram compliance? It refers to the store's execution of predefined store layouts. And the goal is to ensure that every retail store is optimized to sell the products within the right time. So there you go. And then also can help solve for staffing shortages and then optimize merchandising areas and store operations. So very like focused on internal operations. How do I make sure that the stuff is like getting off the shelf in the time frame it's supposed to, and it has the best opportunity to do so. So this year, it's like really been pushing towards what they're calling democratizing vision-based edge AI to make it more accessible across these specific industries. Some recent partners that they discussed that are trying this out, Lawson, which is a convenience store chain. So they're using that for the shelf monitoring systems. So like employees now, instead of manually inspecting the shelves, like is there inventory there? It's helping reduce loss of sales opportunities. They've got something that's automated there. another books and goods chain called Village Vanguard. They're using it for signage specifically, so like promotional videos, advertising on in-store screens, which is pretty cool. There's an IT solutions provider, NEC, that's using it, supply chain solutions. So they've kind of like, entered into all the different verticals that they discuss. And I think it's really, really interesting. They are going to be back at NRF. So if you happen to go, maybe stop by SSS, and also stop by and see a seat. But some of their partners include Microsoft as well. So I think this is really interesting. I like the application of AI here. I think this is doing something that is really beneficial to corporate America, if you will, like multi-locations that do have, they have to fulfill certain things, right, in terms of how much they're buying from specific brands and different SKUs and how fast they move those so that they can make room for the next set of SKUs that go there, whether that's in caps or whatever. So I think this is like a really great application. And I think that it also streamlines things for employees. You think of all the challenges around hiring capable and loyal workers today. And I think if you're taking less off of them, so like they're not having to actually manage the shelf inventory, it's kind of managing itself. They're alerted that something needs to be put on, and that's taken care of. So I think that there's just like a lot of good opportunities for where we are today, especially in retail. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the thing that really jumps out at me, I mean, yeah, I think there's a lot of, in the different examples that you gave, a lot of ways to use this type of technology for store optimization, planning, employee, streamlining employee time and things like that. But I think for me, the one thing that really jumps out at me is, and probably it's the Village Vanguard, bookstore chain experience or case study, if you will, is we've talked a lot on this show about the rise of these retail media networks and, Walgreens and Walmart and CVS and everybody having a media network now. And so essentially you have these screens like in these stores running media, running promotions, selling screen time to brands, and I think if you can integrate technology like, this SSS piece or the Atrios system from Sony here, then having the ability to sort of measure how much time people are spending in front of those screens, how many people are looking at those screens, having metrics to evaluate that, I think is a big area, especially in North America, I'm going to say. Given the growth that we've talked about in this space. So I think this is interesting. I'm definitely, while at NRF, I'll, go and see these guys and, reach out. Maybe we can have some meetings and talk about, ways to partner on some things here, because I think there's a lot of opportunity in this space. And I think the timing is really good for the Atrios platform in kind of where the growth is in these media networks at this time. So I like
Yep.
it. All right, on to our final story. So now coming into the pure world of location data and marketing and analytics, two of the big players in our space, two of the mainstays in our space, Unacast and Gravy Analytics, are now one. So just a few weeks ago, they announced that they were merging the two companies together, and kind of had some insight into this a little bit. Had some conversations with Jeff White over at Gravy earlier in the year, kind of talking about what they were doing, exploring some partnership potential between us and with ground level insights in them. But kind of knew they were kind of looking to move in a different direction. And I think for me, I'm excited about this partnership. I think it's game changing for the industry. It creates a massive player from a scale point of view in the industry, and you have really a combination of Unicast with their sort of analytics and AI and machine learning capabilities, and Gravy really coming with sort of raw data and processing technology around that data, their SDK. and very, in some respects, very different customer bases as well. Gravy's, done very well in working with governments and utility companies and these kinds of things, large scale enterprise clients. Whereas obviously Unicast has a pretty strong client base on retail and real estate and some of these markets. So I think the combination of the two, both in terms of the customer blending, the revenue, the joint revenue that comes together from this, and then now the combination of the technology stack that they're putting together here makes for something really interesting. So um, the new headquarters for the combined company will be in Ashburn, Virginia, but they'll still have offices in Oslo, Norway, in Czech Republic as well. And Thomas Wale will stay on as CEO of the combined company with Jeff White serving as the president. So um, I'm excited about this. I think it's very interesting for our industry. Maybe it's a signal to more consolidation within the industry. I was talking to somebody else this morning about Near Technologies, another player in this space, who just filed for bankruptcy, and they're raising new capital and trying to restructure and kind of want to come back out. But again, like I think that's a signal that our industry is changing. There's going to be a lot of movement in this, and I think this is a really good example of two great companies and two great leadership teams coming together. Excited to see where it goes. And then just one quick follow on from that. I think the combination of the technology between the two is really interesting, and especially on the AI side. And to that end, the combined company also announced a new partnership with Google Cloud around their Vertex AI platform. So this is all about powering the Unicast AI chatbot and how that interacts with customers to then kind of derive actionable location intelligence, through the platform as well. So there's definitely a lot that's being done with AI machine learning and in our industry. And I think these guys are definitely at the forefront of that.
Yeah, two companies we've known for a really long time. So, from a people perspective, it's good to see good people working together and coming together. And I agree that this is likely a sign of, consolidation, but also maybe like building up the tool set and empowering the offering for sure. So not a ton to add. I think you covered it pretty well, but it's definitely one that I want to pay attention to see what kind of rolls out in the next year or so for them.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for listening and watching. Please reach out to us if you have story ideas or feedback. You've been tuned into episode number 650 of Location Weekly. We will be back right after the holidays with another show for you. In fact, our prediction show, so our annual prediction show, where we're not going to give you any stories. We're going to tell you, what we think is coming down the road for 2024. Maybe talk about some companies that we think, you might want to take a flyer on. I don't know, but that's what you have to look forward to right after the holidays. So thank you, everybody. It's been a great year in our industry. We appreciate your support and for tuning in, and we'll see you right after the holidays. Have a great one and take care. Bye.
Bye.